So now we're ready. We're going to be ready soon to put our valve body onto our case and our finished transmission. We have to install these accumulators back in the case. But before we do that, we're going to do the same modification to these as we did the 2.4 expander on the closed end. We put our update from the ship kit, wire ring and a new seal, and it goes on the closed end of the accumulator, and that holds that, expands that seal tighter. Remember, stagger your rings away from any kind of hole. Make sure the seal's on up. A little bit of grease so slide easier. And it simply installs in the case. This slot on this accumulator, you may think it needs to go somewhere, but it doesn't. It can go anyway. That accumulator is going to spin in its bore at some point anyway, just by natural force. We have to remove the inner spring and discard it. Simply insert your block and it'll crush it and stop dead in its tracks when it gets to that. And repeat the same procedure for the other accumulator. Now the low reverse accumulator, for one, it has to go into the bore different. Two, we're going to be keeping that inner spring that we discarded earlier, and we're just going to be adding a smaller solid little wire stop. It's going to go in there. The spring assembly goes in. Actually sets on top of everything. Sometimes this is a little tricky to get in there if the case isn't level. And I missed my mark. I'll have to level the case. Get our springs straight in the bore the best we can. And set. And the accumulator in there. And you can see it has a spring action to it. What that accumulator does, act as a shock absorber, which is a bonded rubber cover, kind of like all the pistons in this particular transmission. It's not cut, it's fine, you can reuse it. You want to be careful with this one because the snap ring groove tends to want to grab things and cut them. In this case, sometimes you can take pick, work it in, push down on the little bit so you know it moves freely and it hasn't folded the actual seal. Get our snap ring, close it, push down on your cover, and the snap ring is in. Now we can air test this low reverse clutch without having to plug a hole. Clutch down here is the one that we'll be applying. It is bypassed, or air has went through this hole down to this chamber to the accumulator. It will compress the accumulator first and then it will apply the clutch. So now we're ready to put our valve body onto the case. Now before you set this in, you want to scoop the manual lever and the rooster comb all the way into the manual low position. This pulls the park pawl back and latches it against this little tab here. And we'll show you what we mean by doing that as we drop the valve body down. Here's this seal that we replaced for that 2/4 clutch. It will set against this piston hole here and use and apply it when needed. Take your time, be patient, and work slow. Now that seal on that selector shaft is probably going to be a little fussy. Try to work it in there the best you can. You can kind of turn the valve body and work it in there. And it's going to be really stubborn. A little bit of movement. Moved a little bit more. A little light tap. Don't be too hard on it. And it's still being stubborn. Slowly working its way in there. There we go. Watch your fingers because this can pinch you. And guide your bulkhead connectors into their holes. And we're making progress. Keep checking your bulkhead connectors so that they're not bound up. Never force it. Almost 100% down. Just make sure everything's seated right. All these rubber seals, they kind of swell up a little bit when you take them out, and they'll be little pain. What? It looks like we're down all the way. Right now, we're in manual low. So now that our valve body's down, we want to try to put it in park. We're going to move our selector all the way this direction, and we're in park. So that's the way to test it. Now we're in reverse, neutral, drive, 3, 2, manual low. So 1, 2, 3, D, neutral, reverse, park. All these bolts are the same length, 10mm heads. And as you know, there's a bunch of them. Now we're just going to run these down to the point where they stop. And then check in your book for the correct tightening sequence. So we've torqued this bolt to 150 inch-pounds. The rest will be the same, they're the same length. Just refer to your service manual for any correct spec on any bolt in the transmission. The last thing on the valve body is the brand new transmission filter. It has an O-ring. Sometimes they'll come in the kits with an O-ring, sometimes they won't. Find one that's appropriately sized in your kit and push it in the hole. Line up your bolt holes. Your 225 torque screws. Last but not least, transmission pan. So we got our pan on. We just have a few minor things to go before we get ready to put it in the vehicle. And that's your speed sensors, turbine input, turbine output. Those are easy. We marked them and just reinstall them as they come out. Shift linkage, center case and the transfer case. And we'll put the torque converter in and we'll reinstall in the vehicle and test it out.